I broke my back. My vertebrae collapsed. It crushed the nerves going down my leg. I couldn't walk. I couldn't run. I couldn't work. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get out of pain. And I'm like, who am I without the things that I use to identify myself? I was looking at a particular service and the person said, let's have a Zoom call. And immediately, without asking really anything about me, could not wait to show me their pitch deck. And I was just like, who in the world taught you that anything about that is okay? We're always talking about how we can foster belonging for the people that we lead. And we don't even focus on our own sense of belonging and the ways we feel like we don't belong. Because I believe that belonging is safety and choice. The whole thing about bring your whole self to work to me is BS.
Welcome to Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are joined today for a very special episode. We have Shelley Brown, who is Rebel in a Gown. And to celebrate Shelley Brown and being the Rebel in the Gown, Annie and I are also dressed for the occasion. We are all dressed in our gowns today on this Friday, playing dress up and podcasting. Shelley, it's so good to see you.
I'm so thrilled to be with you both. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this is our second attempt, so we're going to embrace the mistake that we made the last time, which I think gave us the idea, or you brought the idea of like, let's just celebrate it and let's dress up. So thank you for the idea. I think it's a great way to end a week. So we're excited about that. Before we get started, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about you and your journey to being a rebel in a gown.
Sure. Thanks so much. So I am from the hospitality industry. I like to say I was discovered working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. That much is true. I was working as a waitress, didn't know what I wanted to do. And some people from a hotel came into my bar for happy hour and they're like, you're so weird. We love you. Come work for us. Next thing you know, I'm working in a hotel and I found my people right away. So most of my career has been in the hospitality industry. I became a concierge, which is absolutely perfect for somebody like me because I wake up every day thinking, who can I make friends with today, still to this day. The only thing that's bad about that is Uber has taken away my fun because when I walk up to people on the street and I want to ask them if they need directions, they're like, no, just waiting on my ride share. But yeah, it's kind of sad. But then went into travel technology, event management technology. I've worked in CVBs. I worked on the hotel side. And then I didn't continue to climb the corporate ladder. I fell off of it and found mindfulness. And then that is what started my speaking journey. I wanted to teach mindfulness in the corporate world. So I taught it with rock music, realized my highest value is belonging. And then I started speaking on belonging and then have just recently rebranded to Rebel in a Gown.
Absolutely love it. Shelley, I mean, you've done some exceptional things in your career, starting with hospitality side, but I mean, now you've moved on into really a motivational speaker and somebody that works with a lot of large companies and teams. And maybe just tell us a little bit more about like that journey that got you to where you are now and what it is that you offer within the business.
Sure. Thanks so much. So I knew that I wanted to be a speaker. And the reason that I knew was I taught fitness for 19 years and I loved doing lunch and learns and making them fun because people would come to technology lunch and learns and you would have to make the product offering, a 60 slide deck interesting and fun. And it was my favorite thing to do, honestly. So after I was teaching mindfulness and that was doing seminars and workshops, I just knew I wanted to do something bigger. And I wrote a talk about belonging. I knew I wanted to serve the industries that I'd come from, hospitality, technology, travel, and events and tourism. And I just literally used my sales background, started pitching this talk, and people started hiring me to speak. So initially, I was speaking on belonging. I used the word weird as acronym, WEIRD, because as a kid, I was like the weird girl. And I think we all know what it's like to feel a little bit weird. But I'm artsy and I'm a little different. So I was like the weird girl. So I used it as an acronym in my talks, and it's welcoming. And it's not like, hi, how are you? It's what's going on between my ears, because I need to welcome those thoughts so that I can make a choice about them. And then engaging, obviously, it's curiosity and listening and receiving the story of another person, receiving the idea of another that somebody suggests, that kind of engagement, and integrating, looking at the whole picture of a person. For example, making sure that we're not looking at somebody like they're the last mistake they made. And then risk taking, it's not jumping off a cliff, and it's not just vulnerability. It's sharing ideas so that we can make it safe for the other people to follow. And then delivering is the key to it all. It's delivering on all those things. So I started speaking on belonging. And then obviously we've had a very interesting time this year. And I really did some soul searching, and I realized that while belonging is one of my highest values, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's more about legacy. It's more about noticing how we are leading with our own sense of belonging or lack thereof. And can we break some of those rules that have been ingrained in us? For example, for women, we wear badass, like this badge of honor, and maybe, we don't lean into the other side of ourselves because we're being a badass, or we're wearing a badge of burnout, like, oh, look at me, look how hard I'm working, or the crown of perfection. We have a lot of really, really strong expectations that we have bought into, men too, vulnerability, things like that. So if we can rebel against those, and I don't mean loud and fierce, it could be soft and quiet, but in order for us to lead with legacy in mind, we cannot continue to perpetuate these things that we've bought into, because don't if we don't stop perpetuating them, the next generation has to continue to do the same thing again. So it's kind of belonging 2.0, but it's more about legacy and what that means for results, what that means for culture, what that means for engagement. But everything has to obviously thread back to the bottom line, because that's why we're in business. And that's all what Rebel in a Gown is about.
Oh, there's so much, and I love all of it. And I want to ask you, because a lot of what we talk about on the show is people's aha moments, the things that really sparked them to do the things that they're doing. So I know I started following you probably, I feel like about 2 years ago, and then we connected maybe 6 or 7 months ago, but you would always use this title for yourself called the I don't
Belongingologist.
belongingologist. It's a big one.
Yeah.
But was there something that happened to you along the way? I mean, you used the word weird, and you said you were called weird. Was it some specific moment that gave you this, like, okay, that's what I need to focus on, is like the belonging and the bringing in other people and the ideas? Or was it just a culmination of things through an early career?
Wow. So thanks. That's a great question. It was a million little things. And obviously, like, I have a childhood memory about being called weird by the popular girl in school who found my journal. Seriously.
Oh
but
gosh.
but really what happened was, I was an endurance athlete. I was a ultra runner. I taught spinning. I had gone from being somebody who just loved serving and practicing hospitality and helping people as a concierge, and just loving that relationship part of everything I've done. And then at some point I realized, like, relationships and transactions, I had a hard time marrying the two. Like, in my sales career, being able to actually build relationships, understand what people needed, and then marrying that with the value is where I found my sweet spot in my career. But then I found that things became a lot more transactional. And I think as a result, I was trying to, like, be the badass. I was trying to be like, oh, look at me. Look, I'm running another marathon. Oh, look, I'm teaching 6 spin classes. Oh, look, I'm climbing to the top of the KPI dashboard. And then I broke my back. My vertebrae collapsed, and it crushed the nerves going down my leg. And it was one of those moments where it's like, who am I without that? I couldn't walk. I couldn't run. I couldn't work. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get out of pain. And I'm like, who am I without the things that I use to identify myself? And I mean, a lot of people have that moment. People have it now with job losses and things like that. People certainly had it during the pandemic. And that was my moment, like, oh my gosh, who am I without those things? And it gave me the opportunity to like really reach inside of myself to figure out like what my values are, what I love, what lights me up. And it like broke open a lot of creativity. I started painting, I started doing art, I started writing, and I started speaking. So it was really a pivotal moment when I injured myself.
Wow, that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, and I've got so many questions, but, like, what I really want is some examples of some of the things that you
Mhm.
just covered, because it all makes so much sense, but it's like, I think we can follow people, we can read things, we can, like, understand concepts of what you need to be doing, right? Or, like, how you need to change your life around, but sometimes it's hard in the day to day of, like, okay, like, I need to understand what my values are. How do I figure that out? One, and then two, once I know what they are, what am I doing differently with that, right? So, like, for you, when you lost the ability physically to do what in your mind that was who you were, and you had to focus on what those values are, like, what process did you go through, and did you do that alone, or did you do it with was a coach or something like that? Like, how did you get through that?
Yeah, thanks. So I started writing and I wrote pain. I wrote like about the pain that I was in. And I would write every day, write and write and write. And then as I was healing, I started writing funny stuff. And it was really through a lot of writing that I got to really know some of the sides of me that had been buried underneath achievement, like funny stuff. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is one of the most critical things that I ever did in my life was I went through a mindfulness based stress reduction program because I've always been like high energy and I've always been super energetic, and there's nothing that's going to make that stop because that's just kind of who I am. But I didn't realize how much anxiety and stress I had been under, and chronic pain can really kick that off into high gear where you're just amygdala hijacked. So that really helped me so much to slow down. But then what I really realized through reading a lot of different books, so I don't come to mindfulness like a yogi or, like a Buddhist, but what I found is that mindfulness is really foundational to self-awareness. And I learned that you can break any pattern if you can deconstruct it. Like if you think of a behavior or something that you react to and you think, wait a minute, how did I think that thought and all of a sudden I'm reacting this way? If you look at it like self-awareness, a good example is a sandwich. Imagine you've got two pieces of bread, some turkey, and tomatoes. And I don't like condiments. I like ketchup. So, but anyway.
Wait, is ketchup not a condiment?
Yeah. Well, no, I like ketchup.
Technically it
That's
is,
the,
Oh,
yeah.
you okay, I
yeah,
thought you
it
were
is.
like, "Hold on, I'm
All
learning
right.
something brand new today."
Okay. So let's add the ketchup. So you got two pieces of gluten-free toast, hold the vegan cheese because it sucks. And then you've got turkey, and then, no offense, vegan, sorry, tomato, whatever. You've got this sandwich. And if you deconstruct any behavior, and I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, she's like, I have my days all planned out, and every time something like throws a curveball in my day, I like freak out. And I'm like, okay, okay, I get that. I used to be like that. Like I just had to be so rigid and planned out. She's like, okay, let's talk about this. What happens when you get that email or somebody calls you and say, you need to do this project? What is it? What is the immediate? Is it negative or positive? And she's like, well, it's negative. I'm like, okay, that's your top piece of bread. And then how do you feel in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? She's like, I clench my, it's like I automatically like clench up. I'm like, all right, there's your tomato. So you've got a negative feeling, you've got your clenching, and then what are the thoughts in your head? And of course, there were some expletives and like, I can't believe this. My day was perfect. I'm like, okay, there's your turkey. And then what happens? She's like, I'll just be like reactive. Like my whole day is screwed up. And now what am I going to do? And I'm like, All right, that's your other piece of bread. So, and Annie, this is kind of like the let them thing, because if we can make a choice, if we know our behavior patterns and we make a choice at every component, you've got your bread, you've got that feeling, oh my gosh, it's negative. You have a choice right there. Let them, let me, right? It's that same thing. We call it choice point. A lot of people in mindfulness call it choice point. Then you've got the clenching. Okay, that's the tomato. You've got another choice point. Then you got the turkey, your thoughts in your head. Okay, I don't have to like freak out and like go ballistic or reactive. And then that's another choice point. So we can really change every single pattern if we can understand what's happening with that process. We just have to break the chain.
I will never eat a turkey sandwich the same way again.
Right? Yeah.
I'm gonna look at that turkey and I'm gonna think twice about what I put on it. That's a
That's so
really
funny.
I think that's a great way to look at it. Like if and it's almost like compartmentalizing each little piece of it so you can deconstruct it and decide like how you react or don't react or whatever. And so I think that's super important. And so going to your weird, how did you come up with that? Was that again another part of this process, or just again something else that came along later in your speaking and kind of working and coaching people?
It's funny because if you think about the acronym, it really is embedded in mindfulness. It's in my the most important leadership traits as far as I'm concerned are presence and self-awareness, because being present is the greatest gift that you can give to another person. And self-awareness is your North Star, it's your compass for really being able to see if you are in alignment with your values. So the weird acronym is really about presence. It's really about the concepts of what mindfulness is really about. And it kind of extends to, well, it really does extend to my other talks. Step into Exceptional Leadership is all about not being cookie cutter and really taking the time to be present for somebody else. What is their purpose? Why do they want to be part of this organization? Not our own organizational purpose, but what are their gifts and talents and how can they utilize them? And I think it's our responsibility as leaders to be present, to ask those questions, to practice curiosity and really get to know and be a scholar of that person and get to know that person's weird, what makes them unique, what makes them different, what parts of them can they bring into the workplace. So that's where the weird came from. And then in terms of rebel leadership, it is a lot about our own narratives and disrupting those so that we can lead with legacy.
I love it. I love it. I would have a feeling you journal quite a bit, I would imagine.
Every day.
Every day. Okay. Yeah. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because that's something that I'm, personally interested in. I go through bouts where I'm more consistent in doing it often, and not either it's that I'm in my phone writing in my journal, or I do audio if I'm driving. But then sometimes it's like you fall into that rut of like, then I'm like, what was I doing for 3 months? Like, why didn't I keep going? And it's so interesting to look back on it too, of like, one, you forget what happens in the day to day of your life. And so it's interesting to go back and read it, but like to read back when you're in a different place in your life, what you were thinking at a certain time, like it's kind of cool, right? I mean, like it gives you, self-awareness 101, to be able to see yourself that way. But maybe just tell us a little bit about how you journal, best practices. I think that's something that our audience would love.
Sure. And it's super funny because I have a side of myself, and I think you know this, Annie. Like I'm whimsical, and I'm wearing a gown, and I have like big tattoos, and
Oh,
I'm an
that's
artist, and
beautiful.
oh, thank you.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I
I
didn't know
call
that was
my
back there.
call
Beautiful.
myself the girl dragging the tattoos. Remember Girl and the Dragon?
Yep.
And these came from riding across the country on a Harley Davidson with my an ex-boyfriend who was a Harley Davidson biker, and I didn't know I could make my own art, so I put it on my body. It was a form of rebellion that was very different than what I'm talking about. But anyway, so besides being an artist and being really whimsical and like all that stuff, I'm like strangely incredibly disciplined. And so when I establish a routine, it won't be broken, put it that way. So I started journaling years ago, and I do it first thing in the morning, even before I have coffee. I know people freak out with that one, but literally, I have stacks of empty journals and filled up journals. And I love it because it gives a clean slate to the day. Sometimes when I've had like an amazing day the day before, I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was the most amazing day. But one of the things that I don't do is reflect on a crappy day. I don't write about that because each day is new. And so I look at my journal as a page of possibility and what I want to bring to the day. And I mean, I wrote about you two in my journal today, and I probably wrote about it for a few days. And I don't like the word manifesting. I'd rather call it one manifesting, but I do. I like to claim things. I'm very optimistic and I love to claim what I want to happen. And I love to practice gratitude in my journal. Like that's a really, really big part of it. I write about some challenges, but mostly it's like journals of what could actually happen in this day, what I want to bring into the day, and exciting things that I'm looking forward to and things that I hope. And one of my favorite things, and I'm going to go off on a little tangent. If you have seen on LinkedIn the best in row, Annie, you might have seen that. Have you seen my
Mm,
best in row? If you didn't,
I
that's
don't think
okay.
so. No. Yeah.
So I journal every time I'm going to travel to an event. I write
Oh,
about,
yes, the pictures. Okay, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, what is
Okay,
that?
yes.
Sounds interesting.
Best in row, yeah, and when she
Oh,
travels on
oh, I did see
planes,
that.
yes, the best
Yes,
in
yes.
yes, okay,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
I literally, like days before I travel, I get so excited. And I'm always excited about the events where I'm going to speak, but I'm also excited about the person I'm going to meet on the flight sitting next to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
And so I write about this. I'm going to meet my best in row. They're going to become my friend. It's going to be
Oh, that's so
amazing.
great.
And every time I get on a flight, I always sit in the aisle seat in case I have to run off mid flight. I'll be closer to the door, you know.
Yeah.
Not
Do you have your
right.
Yes,
parachute ready?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I don't have flight anxiety, but because I get so excited to speak at my events, my nervous system gets confused because
Sure.
it's the same hormones. It's adrenaline and cortisol. So I'm
Right.
excited to speak at an event and I'm on a flight and I'm like, oh, I have flight anxiety. But no, I don't, because when I fly home, I'm like, yeah, look at me, chill flyer, you know.
That's so
But I
cool.
do. I write about my best in row, and it almost always happens that I've met the most amazing people on my flights.
I saw one post that you did where you were speaking in for the technology company. I think you were in France and you
Uh-huh.
met some people and then you ended up like having dinner with them and traveling, like doing a bunch of stuff within France. It wasn't just this like random on a plane and that was it. You like ended up having some experiences with these people, right?
Yeah, it was actually best in baggage claim. My
Oh,
Uber my Uber app was not working right, and I was in Nice and I had to go to Cannes. So I saw a man speaking English to his young daughter. She was like 9. And I walked up to him and I said, do you happen to, are you familiar with Cannes? And he said, oh yeah, I live in Cannes and I also live in New Hampshire. And or New England. So I said, oh, is it okay to take a taxi? You know, you're in a foreign country, you don't
sure.
always know. And he said, where are you going? And I told him, and he said, oh no, we'll take you. We have a driver. We'll take you. So I went with them, and he goes, do you mind if we stop by and stop by my house? And at this point, like I'm talking with them, and I trust them, and people are like, what did you do? So
Right.
we go to his house and we pick up this 89-year-old mom, and we go to an Italian restaurant in Cannes. I have lunch with them. They drop me off at my hotel. I speak for Infor, and then the next day I'm free. And this gentleman and his daughter pick me up, and they take me all over, like to Grasse, which is the perfume capital of the world. And we went to lunch, and then they picked me up for dinner. So I'm still in touch with them, and I It's amazing.
What an amazing experience if you're just open to what the world's gonna deliver to you. I mean, I think we all can learn from that. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it really is about being mindful though of like you have to put yourself in that position because it's really easy. I mean, when you're flying, you're stressed out, like you're worried about times, getting to the gate and everything. When you get on the plane, you're just ready to get wherever you're going. And it's like if you don't stop before then to think about, I can't wait who I'm gonna meet on this plane today. Like you're gonna get into that rut, right? And I've found myself thinking similar many times that like whenever we go on vacation or whenever we go to a conference or whenever I travel, I always do think that. It's never hit me until now of you saying it, but like I think in my mind, like when I get back from wherever I'm going, I'm gonna be a different person because I'm gonna have met people that I didn't even know existed, and like I think for me in my career, that's been something that's just been very exciting to me that I worked for one company for 13 years and when I left and I've done several different things since then, like I've met so many more people in my lifetime that I didn't even know existed. And it's like, to think about how many more people all of us will meet in our lifetime that we don't know or are even in existence right now and how they're going to touch our lives. Like it's kind of exciting, like I can't wait
Yeah.
to meet all my new friends as this
I
journey
love
continues.
that.
That's saying, I think, it's strangers are friends you haven't met yet.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, Annie and I were strangers at one point, so
Yep.
gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
I think I look at everybody like a friendship waiting to happen. And when I, even on LinkedIn, I literally, anytime somebody sends me a connection request or I send one, I read their about section and I look at the post that they share as much as I can. I probably have more time than both of you, being self-employed and stuff. But you can get the best snapshots of people and what they care about and what they value. And sometimes I read these things, I'm like, wow, I just know I'm going to really, really enjoy getting to know this person. And by the way, anybody in sales, if you're not doing that, you're missing out on a big, big way to really make a real connection with people.
We'll be back in just a minute after a word from our premier brand sponsor, Boom.
I'm Benjamin Vale, and I'm the owner of Hospitality, and we are a short-term rental and mid-term rental management company in Columbus, Ohio. We manage about 140 furnished listings, mostly in Columbus, but also some in Cincinnati and surrounding cities around Columbus. Before I started using Boom, some of my pain points were that my owners would have all of these questions. There was an owner statement, but none of the information that they were looking for was on there. What I was able to find with Boom was actually a system where all team members can share the same information, whether they're owners or maintenance folks. I was excited to see the transparency that was provided through the owner portal of not only the revenue, but also the performance metrics and photos and videos from maintenance tasks in a property by property P&L that was updated to the day. When I saw what Boom has for processing reviews from guests, I realized it was a game changer. It basically allowed AI to do all of the heavy lifting on almost all of that. The AI is able to gather all of the data points, whether it's a positive or a negative mention, and easily create a task and schedule it to address any issues. With Boom, we're able to see a lot more financial metrics, and we're able to track more in real time cash on cash returns and annual returns and things like that. I would refer Boom to colleagues and friends. The main reasons are the time savings, and they're always developing with the new technology that's available to stay up with what technology is going to be able to help your business next.
Head over to boomnow.com to see a demo of this revolutionary software, and be sure to include that you heard about Boom on the Alex and Annie podcast. Our listeners receive 50% off onboarding fees, and the first month is free. Go to boomnow.com and see for yourself how AI is revolutionizing the future of property management systems.
I wanted to point out something you had done for me a couple of different times where you private messaged me on a post or when I started my Substack and like it sent me some like words of encouragement and just how it hit you. And I remember thinking, I don't know this person. She seems amazing, but that you took the thought and the time to not just say thumbs up or I like or just you wrote a very thoughtful message to me multiple times. And what was interesting about it is at least two of the times that I can think of, they came at exactly the right moment when I was sitting there having those tomatoes in my head, like I would, or turkey, whichever part of the sandwich it is. I was just having anxiety about some things, and I was reacting to things, and it just hit me that it goes back to another friend of ours who always says, like, you just, like, when you're speaking, you connect with one person. It doesn't have to be everybody. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like your post doesn't have to resonate for every single person. Your Substack doesn't have to resonate for anybody, but it might resonate for one. And that's where the difference is made. And so I needed that, like, encouragement at that moment to say, like, okay, like, it hit you, it meant something to you. So if it meant something to you, then what I felt was it was needed. And I really appreciated you doing that. So I think it's something that I try to be more mindful of and practice and reach out to people and give them encouragement. Even if I don't know if they need it, I just feel like if I'm being encouraged, that they should know that I'm being encouraged. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I love your writing, by the
Thank
way.
you.
And we've talked a lot about joy, but I wanted to say one other thing. So I really appreciate that. That is all, that's one of the biggest parts of my message is, again, obviously with belonging, we all want to be seen. We all want to be known. We all want to know that we matter. And in this crazy world with social media and LinkedIn and Instagram and all of us trying to be heard, it's like, if you look at what you're doing, that there's just one person who may need to hear what you have to say. It's like that audience of one. When you have that mindset, like, I feel like in our industry, and I still call myself part of the industry, that's the practice of hospitality, being super intentional about just the care, right? And helping people feel we're all here to help each other on our journeys. And so often, especially with how many distractions in our digital world, we're sometimes doing the exact opposite, right? And so if we can have that intention, we don't have to do it perfectly. It's not an invitation for shame when we don't. But I definitely think as leaders that has to be an intention. And I think what gets in the way a lot is stress and anxiety and thinking about the future and not being present.
That's true. That's true. I'd like to dig in a little bit more on, you mentioned this early on and then it kind of came back there, but about how you kind of struggled initially with relationships and transactional and how they were more transactional. But then you also mentioned just now of, you really should be reading somebody's LinkedIn and finding those ways to connect with them. So how do you coach people on that? I mean, like, what are some tips on how you can build those relationships in a less transactional way? Again, and knowing that not every company or person that you come into contact with is going to be your best friend on the airplane type of situation, that sometimes they do just want to have a transaction. But if you're someone that finds fulfillment in those relationships, like, what can you do?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's always such a push-pull, right? We want the numbers, we've got quotas, we've got KPIs, I know I've worked in technology where you have a certain amount of phone calls that you need to make and a certain amount of demos that you need to do and a certain amount of whatever. But even just like in an email or in a message, looking at something about somebody and in an authentic way, finding a point of connection. If you even have just a minute to glance, you're going to find a point of connection with somebody. And if you start with that, that helps people so much immediately because they're like, oh, wait, wow, how did they know that about me? Because you took the time, and it doesn't take very long. And another thing is, I pick up the phone still. I know it sounds really weird, but I mean, I'm in sales too, right? Because I'm a speaker. So I pick up the phone, and it was so funny because I picked up the phone and called somebody, and they answered and they said, "Hi, this is so and so." I'm like, "Hi, this is Shelley. How are you?" And they literally paused, like, wait a minute. Somebody's actually asking, how are you? And I think we're so like, okay, it's got to be a telemarketer,
Right.
you
Right to
know?
business. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I always ask, how are you? It stops people. And you know what? right there is the best moment to be like, I know it's kind of weird because, first of all, people don't pick up the phone. Second of all, most people don't ask you how you are and actually wait for you to respond to that. So, I mean, the littlest things make the biggest difference. And I just think if we just took an extra minute or two to personalize our approach. And one other thing, Alex, is I was looking at a particular service and reached out to find out about it. And the person said, oh, let's have a Zoom call. And immediately, without asking really anything about me, could not wait to show me their pitch deck. And I was just like, who in the world taught you that anything about that is okay? It's really a minute. It's just like, how are you? How's your day? Happy Friday. What littlest things make the biggest difference? Because people want to be seen, heard, and known, right? I think that the other thing is that self-awareness piece again. It's like who am I wearing? It's like whose clothes am I wearing today? Am I wearing the badass? Am I wearing the I can't show emotion? What am I doing that is blocking me from my own sense of belonging? That's something we don't always talk about. We're always talking about how we can foster belonging for the people that we lead, and we don't even focus on our own sense of belonging and the ways we feel like we don't belong, or the masks that I hate to use that word anymore, but whatever it is that we're wearing that's not ours.
Yeah, I hate that term, fake it till you make it. I feel like teaching people to go to that as their fallback of like how they're getting through, it gives you that notion that you have to be someone false to be successful. Like you can't be who you authentically are. And Alex and I, when we first started doing the podcast, we got this habit from a friend that was like, every year you get rid of 5 things that don't serve you. You pick a song to lead you through the next year. You pick like a mantra, you pick a word. And so we actually, so for our first of the month January episode every year, we kind of do a recap, but then we introduce our words and talk about why we've chosen them and what they are. And a couple of years ago, yeah, it's so great. It's like I start thinking about it like in
Yeah.
late October, like I really need to put some thought into it. But the first word that I chose was authentic. And that year was so pivotal for me to kind of come out of my shell and understand like who I was and really embracing that like I'm a unique individual and I'm needed in various places. And, I may feel out of place in a square peg in a round hole or whatever you want to say, but that I'm a peg that is needed in places, and I'll be put in those places that I'm needed if I'm just open to those opportunities and quit trying to pretend or mold myself into what I think every situation needs, because there's rooms that I'm not fit for and there's rooms that I am, and it's finding those rooms that I am. And so I think that that's important to, like you said, to focus on yourself and really find your footing, because without your footing you can't help other people find
Yeah.
theirs.
Yes. Thank you for that too. And I feel that from you, from the things that I've read, on and off LinkedIn, and I appreciate that so much. And people do appreciate that in any situation. I think we all aspire to be the most us we can be. And I think we are, like when we're kids, and then the world kind of swallows us up. And I think that later on we're like trying to reconnect to the person that we were when we're younger. And I think, I don't mean like be a kid. I'm talking about who we are, our before we get like sucked up into craziness. And then when we finally kind of reconnect, we realize that we're more like we were when we were kids in a lot of ways. And if you ever see a childhood friend, I don't know, Alex, if you have friends from when you were a kid, they know who you are. Even if they haven't talked to you in 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, they know the essence of the person that you are. I always think that's fascinating.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I've got, gosh, 3 girlfriends from high school and college in particular that I stay in touch with. And sometimes we'll go sometimes a few months and not talk, but we'll text, but then we see each other and it's like right back to the beginning, the same things make us laugh. Like we get each other in such like a unique way. But, and I read something interesting the other day about like, the way to stay to stay true to yourself as you grow is to really maintain those relationships, right? The people that knew you before you are who you are now, because you mold to certain situations and people and environments as you grow, but those people that knew you before all that, that's still who you are inside. And then hopefully you're not terribly different than that now. That's a good thing. But it's good to have that reminder, and for some people that's family, right? But for some people it is friends too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So tell us about your speaking, because again, I've been watching you for a while, and you've spoken for some really large organizations. I mean, Infor is a big PMS and technology company in the hotel side of the space. I think you've done some stuff with like Microsoft and Apple, or one of the two, and like some just very large companies. So how did you go from cocktail waitress to like doing these, having the gumption, I guess, to get up there and do it?
Thank you. So I absolutely love speaking. I mean, I love it because I love the energy exchange. And the more that I do it, the more fun it is to do a lot of interactive things with the audiences. And plus, so let me answer your question first. So again, I wanted to serve the industries that I had come from, and I thought that I had a really important message. And coming out of the pandemic, even though I had spoken, some virtual stuff during the pandemic, and I spoke on mindfulness before, but this message on belonging has always been authentic to me. And I really didn't know that so much of this industry needed it as bad as they needed this message, especially coming out of the pandemic, after what travel, after what vacation rental, after what hospitality, what we'd all been through. And so being able to speak again at live, being able to have live events and engage people in a way that made them feel really good, but also with some really practical and tactical ways to continue building and fostering belonging. So it just happened organically. And so because I kind of stayed niche in the industry, hotels and tourism and hospitality organizations heard me speak, and they're like, "Oh, we want you to speak." But then it like kind of got into like Dallas Mavericks, and I'm speaking at the Dallas Mavericks, and then it was Allianz Travel Insurance, and then Benchmark Electronics, and it's been great. So I have a few different signature talks. One is the belonging equation, and it's very, very fun. I'm an artist. All my slides are my own original artwork. And so people are either like, okay, she's got a gown on, she's got tattoos, there's art, she's like telling funny stories. Because I think the thing that I like to do as a speaker when I start speaking is to make people feel safe. Like I'm not speaking at them. We're all like doing this thing in this room, and we're all together. We're never going to have this moment again, right? So obviously I am story driven, because especially in the industry, telling relatable stories, and people have those moments like where they're either laughing or feeling the feels, or like, oh my God, I didn't know other people felt that way, or whatever it is. And then getting more into the actionable items. So I have the belonging equation. I have a talk called called the Ditch the Should Show. And it's all about our should narratives, because we collect shoulds throughout our lives, from family, from culture, from work, from society. And unless we kind of take an inventory of those shoulds that are driving us and decide whether they are true for us, it can really derail us in a lot of ways. So that's one talk. Another talk is Step into Exceptional Leadership, which is sort of a Sarah Jessica Parker shoe kind of theme to it.
Love it.
Oh, I like it. I like
Yeah,
the
it's
sound of
really
that.
fun. And
Some good Louboutins.
yes, and it's about, well, I have my Birkenstocks on now. We talked about that.
Yeah, we're all wearing gowns, but we are definitely all
Yeah.
either barefoot or slippers or Birkenstocks. So
Exactly. So that talk is really about making sure that you are leading each individual as an individual, because a one size fits all doesn't fit. And then there's my breaking the hard rules. And what I mean by that, and when I say rebel, I mean, look at me. I'm not like, oh, rebel, you know what I mean? It is, again, it's really about leadership and legacy and making sure that we are not perpetuating these leadership traits that were never written for us or by us, but yet we bought into them. And again, and it's really fun. I rap in that talk. I have a rap. I have an improv game. I mean, look, people don't hire a speaker because they want, 20,000 lessons. You want to feel like you're not being spoken at. You want to feel like you're hearing something that you can agree with, that you have an aha moment, that you learn a few things from, but also that you're entertained and that you enjoy the time that that person is up on stage. And, God willing, I enjoy me. And apparently people have said that they do. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. I love that. Here's a question. So, as you were saying that, it made me think like, I think in a lot of companies, people are nervous sometimes to speak out. Like, if they're thinking, I don't really like how things are being done, or like, I think differently on this. And like, but you don't want to go against the grain of the company, right? And you don't want to be seen as like the one who's just not agreeing with things. But sometimes when you do that, that's kind of how you're labeled. Is you're labeled, I think it happens more with women for sure. You're labeled as being difficult, right? How do you coach people to be a rebel and to lead authentically, to be authentic, to speak their truth to how they think things should be in a way that is not going to rock the boat, but is going to let them, that they can do that, and it's going to be good for not only them but the people around them? Because I think that's what a lot of people
Yeah.
struggle.
That's such a great question. And it starts macro and then it goes micro, because macro it has to do with the psychological safety of a culture, right?
For
If
sure,
you
yeah.
feel safe enough, because I believe that belonging is safety and choice. You need to feel safe about the things you don't have a choice about, things like your skin color, your gender identification, things like that. But then you need to feel safe to choose your level of authenticity. What do I want to share about myself that I want people in my organization to know, so that I do have a sense of safety? The whole thing about bring your whole self to work, to me, is BS. We don't want to necessarily, see the unhinged IKEA furniture building, person at work, right? But we want to feel safe enough. And so it's macro is the whole culture. And then it starts with leaders, because leaders are obviously responsible for promoting that feeling of safety and going first. When leaders go first, people will follow. So, if leaders go first and they take the risk to share innovative and new ideas. And then also, I think leaders have to come from a place of, when you're receiving an idea, when you're receiving a suggestion, when you're receiving somebody standing up for the unpopular opinion, being in that receiver mode in a mindful way, that person's giving you a gift. And it is an opportunity for you to say, if you don't agree with it, then improv it, yes, and expand on it, or take it in before you respond and sit with it. But on the part of the person who is afraid, I would say start small. Find that one person that you can trust first, run it by, and ask that person for what you need. Do you need that reactive opinion about what I'm saying? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need me to help you say it in a way that is going to be met with more curiosity than it is, you're a rebel, you're a disruptor, that kind of thing. So I think we all have a responsibility on our own part to do it in the safest way possible. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're going to put yourself at risk for having to speak something into your organization that may not be popular, but the only person that you can be for in that moment is you. And if that's your truth and it means shaking things up, are you willing to take that risk and be vulnerable? Because you know what? What's the best that could happen?
Yeah. Well, and it's also really nice when you say something, and even if you don't get agreement in the moment, but then a year or two later, you look back and you realize you were, heck,
Right.
yeah, right.
Right.
That nuts on, right?
Mhm.
I've had that happen in my career a few
I was
times.
just going to say, Alex, this is from
And you
personal
say proof of that,
experience.
like, you know what, I was right. But it's like it's important of like sometimes you can feel deflated when you're like, all right, nobody's understanding what I'm saying right now, and then eventually it comes to very clearly you were right. But it's good to keep track of those things, not to go rub it in anybody's face, but like just for your own personal knowledge of like, okay, it worked out. I didn't get in trouble for saying what I said, but like ultimately, whether they listen or not, I was right. So I should keep saying what I'm saying because what I'm saying makes sense.
And in those moments when you're getting met with, like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that, I think one of the most important things is giving yourself some grace that you actually did speak up. And then also remembering that moments in time are moments in time, and that reactivity may not like last forever, and you're not going to be labeled a disruptor forever. You know what I mean? And then there's people who are going to go along with groupthink and still continue to think that you're a disruptor. But everything's just a moment, even if it's a few days, a few weeks, or just one part of your career journey. Honestly,
Yeah, it's a chapter in your
yeah.
book. Which, speaking of books, you have a book that you've written 2 or 1?
I've
2.
got a second one
Second one. Okay, second one's coming out,
coming
so we're
out.
excited about that. So what's next on the horizon for Shelley Brown?
Oh my gosh. So really the rebrand and doing what I can to help people understand about this rebel in a gown and rebel leadership and what that means, and really honing in on the values of it, which I actually posted as I was doing my core
Mhm.
exercise. I don't know if you saw that. I posted me doing sit-ups, and I'm like, here's the core values.
Oh, I
And
love
it's
it.
thanks. It's
Play on
so
words.
yeah, so I think it's really just getting people to understand the brand, and there's a lot of speaking opportunities on the horizon. And hey out
We'd love to
there,
have you come speak at our vacation rental conferences for sure. And
love
yeah, hopefully
to.
we can get you involved. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are very hungry for this information and more of a focus. I think the conferences are realizing like this is also, I mean, you can have the best products, best technology, the best business practices in the world, but if you don't have people that have their headspace, mindset, in the right place to operate all those things, then it's never going to be successful. So I think you would bring a ton of value. But
Thank you. Thank
I'm really
you.
happy that we had the first episode that it was my fault. I never hit record, right? But I'm glad that happened because now we had such a great conversation today.
I
So
agree.
and we all got to
Great.
dress up. My husband was like, "Why are you wearing that right now? We're playing dress up and
It's
podcasting. Why not?"
Yeah.
But so great to catch up with you, Shelley. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, of course, we're gonna make sure we we put your contact info in the show notes. But what's the easiest way if anybody's listening and just want to know how they can reach out?
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram at Shelley Brown Official, and my email address is shelleybrownofficial.com, and I'm SATLLEY brownofficial.com. And it's not because I'm so official, it's just that shelleybrown.com was already
So I
taken.
think, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
If anybody wants to get in touch with Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, everybody.